So, are there any other layers before we shift into kind of the final part of this two-part series? Any other layers we need to talk about before we move into the dynamics that we see?
Yeah, I want to talk about two other quick things.
Okay.
One of these is a soapbox issue. This is also something that gets under my skin. I get on a soapbox about it when people talk about compatibility, which I feel like is kind of buzzwordy in our popular culture. Like, are we compatible? Like, I need physical touch, but she needs quality time, and it kind of has love language stuff. Always gets kind of like wrapped up into this, which is beautiful stuff, right? I'm a fan. But there's often this conversation about compatibility when it comes to things around intimacy and unspoken things like within this sort of framework. And it always kind of rubs me the wrong way because I'm like, people go, well, are we compatible? And I'm like, you're created for compatibility. We're created for intimacy. Like, yeah, I understand one of you is a spender and one of you is a saver. Like, that's not a compatibility issue. And it's like this thing where we almost approach the relation, and this happens in recovery too. It's like we approach the relationship with, I'm this way and you're that way. Do those jive? As opposed to like, actually we're created the same way. When it comes to connection and intimacy, we're designed to jive. Our personal preference about spending and politics and all that stuff, that's a whole different conversation. And there might be compatibility issues there. That's not what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about like at this core stuff, we're created to be compatible. It's often our wounds that outsize the boxes that make it look like we aren't. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, last thing, and then I can move on. I also think it's interesting when I think about the building blocks of intimacy, and I used to talk about this sometimes whenever I was teaching workshops. It hadn't come up lately, but I think about whether it's the natural order of things or it's the byproduct of original sin, I don't know, but it is what it is. Think about when we're in our 90s,
Okay.
right? For all intents and purposes, assuming general health mentally and what physical health we have in 90, right? Which of these boxes, by natural order of things, original sin, whatever, which of these goes away, right? It's sexual intimacy. And granted, I haven't interviewed a bunch of 97-year-olds to see what's going on behind closed doors, but generally speaking, it's kind of interesting to me that like, if we don't know how to be holistically and integratively intimate without sexual intimacy, at some point, what do we have? You know what I mean?
Hi, y'all. Jason here. Hey, I wanted to take a second and interrupt and talk about the Worthy of a Trust workshop. Also, kind of a weird transition because we recorded the podcast episode a few weeks ago where I had a beard and now I don't because we had family pictures and I had to clean up apparently. And so kind of a weird transition there. Anywho, Worthy of a Trust workshop. Hey, listen, our next workshop is on the books. Registration is open January 16th through 18th, 2026. It'll be our first workshop of the new year. And I just want to personally invite you to come join us if you need help with relational restoration. I tell people, I'm on the flight home after these weekends. I'm kind of scratching my head going, how do I describe what goes on? Because there's so much that happens in these weekends. And I think, in terms of the content, we cast a really wide net. We're covering a lot of ground in terms of what we teach. And so you're guaranteed to learn something new and hear something you hadn't heard before in terms of the material. But I think where the real value is in the weekend is spending the time with a group of men who have actually been there, been in the trenches, have lived through it, and now actually are experiencing relational redemption. It's one thing to talk about that from a theory perspective and from a book knowledge perspective or a training perspective. It's a different thing to have lived the 2:00 in the morning conversations, standing in the kitchen about to initiate a conversation that you need to have and everything in you wants to run. How do you even handle a trigger in a way that's healing and not hurtful? How do you build trust at 2:00 on a Friday afternoon? There's stuff in there that you can't know in theory. I guess you can know in theory, but it's a different thing to have lived that. And I think there's a lot of value in learning in that setting where it's it's practical, it's nitty gritty. I mean, myself, for Shelley and I, and for the guys on the team, we want to give you behind the scenes look. We want to give you this is how it worked at our house, the practical stuff, kind of the no holds barred stuff. So, long story short, if you need help with relational restoration, I hope that you'll consider coming to join us in Texas. We'll be in Central Texas. I don't know if I said that earlier. All the details are available on the website. The link is in the description below. And now back to the bearded video. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, I could be off that soapbox.
Well, I have a couple of comments. I mean, yeah, that is interesting that I almost see it as a bell curve. We start life with, mind, heart, body, soul, like those being the primary ways we can connect. Well, and the recreational to a certain extent.
You're talking about before our sexuality comes online?
Yeah. And then we end life, the kind of, if you see life as a bell curve, we end life with probably less recreational. It kind of comes back to the core mind, heart, body, soul ways of connecting. Now, I do think we haven't interviewed 90 plus, but, I used to work in geriatrics, and I can tell you that there's still plenty of sexual intimacy happening for some people in their 70s, 80s plus. And also, when we say sexual intimacy, we are not just talking about sexual intercourse. There are obviously other things that can be done, that would qualify, if you will, as sexual intimacy. So
it's just interesting that when I think about us growing old together, I think about someday, I used to talk about this. I mean, I think about like sitting at a table with old decrepit hands moving around Scrabble tiles and like acts of service being changing out the tennis ball on your walker. I don't think about doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I think about like the sweetness of a life lived together.
Holding hands.
Right. Sitting on a bench and enjoying the day. And, not like how, I don't even need to go into it. You get the point.
Oh, it makes me tear up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I hear you. Okay, any other layers?
No.
That you wanted to mention?
Done.
Okay, now that we're crying over here. Okay, let's talk about then some of the dynamics that we see. And so again, it's going to be helpful for you to have a visual of the building blocks, which what I'm going to be posting online is actually from the Rescued workbook. And so keep in mind what Jason, kind of that, now you're pretty firm with that bottom layer.
Yeah.
So just keep in mind that what you see, some of those blocks
differs a little bit.
Need to be shuffled a little bit. So, but yeah, let's talk about the I call it approaches, but the dynamics that we see. Let's start with top down.
Yeah, top down. So this is where I was really starting in my addiction and moving into recovery was top down.
Okay.
Sex is the way to connect.
Right.
Let's be connected, so let's have sex. Because if we're sexually intimate, we'll be in close proximity. It is fun and recreational. There is physical, non-sexual touch involved. It's intellectually stimulating. It's emotionally warm and fuzzy. And spiritually, we're supposed to do it because God said it's good and we share the same lesson. There's so much broken with that, right? But so top down, the part of what was so dysfunctional about that too is that it meant every box had a connection to sexual intimacy or is like it's almost tainted, right? I couldn't be physically non-sexual touching without it being sexually intimate. We got the same thing out of the message at church. We're going to do it today. Yeah, everything was kind of tainted.
Well, what I have said before, and when I go through this chapter in a group is, I remember once you kind of confessing to me, our kids were little, I had my pajamas on, it was a Saturday morning. I had had one eye open, one eye shut. I probably didn't get much sleep the night before because I was nursing a baby or something. And I'm trying to get a spoon out of the cutlery drawer, and you
bumped against me as you're getting the spoon.
Yeah, and you're like,
I'm like,
sweet.
we're doing it.
And actually, maybe that's more a different dynamic. Maybe that's bottom up with strings attached, like there was
That's a little different than that. That's
Okay.
definitely top down.
Is it top down?
It's just every act of intimacy, every dynamic of intimacy has some connection.
Is charged
right.
with, yes,
Exactly.
sex. And I think that a lot of women can relate to that.
Right.
Now, I want to say, can we go back for a moment to earlier when I was saying, I don't know what I asked you, but you were saying, we were laughing that, there's still times when you touch me and it's not just non-sexual physical touch. Mm-hmm. It's more than that. Mm-hmm. So we're not saying, I don't know, this isn't black and white.
Yeah.
There can still be times when...
Yeah, there are times when it's like, and so this is a real part of 22 years later, is there are times when I can touch you and it's non-sexual and it's just comforting you or just being connected.
Yeah.
And there are times when I realize I'm touching you and I'm not touching you anywhere explicitly.
Yeah, no.
I've got my hand on your shoulder or whatever, but I know within me it's charged. And so there are times when I'm just like, I'm not going to touch you right now. And because it's not the context is not sexual, and it doesn't need to be sexual, right? And then sometimes it is, and it's right and good, and it's physical, non-sexual touch, and then it becomes sexual touch, and yay.
Well, I want to say something there because I think something that women are all constantly trying to figure out are his behaviors, are his actions showing me that he's in recovery or no? Mm-hmm. And that can look in so many different ways. But an example, and we can delete this if you're like, no, this is inappropriate. But there are a little look on Jason's face. He's like,
what are we about to do here?
But there's times when we're in bed. We have our pajamas. Like I have my pajamas on. I don't know, whatever you're wearing. You're wearing clothes. Like a t-shirt.
This got real awkward.
A t-shirt and underwear. Sometimes
where are we going?
And you'll come over to my side of the bed and you'll start to cuddle with me. And you're like, hey, I just want to cuddle. I don't want to have sex. And I'm like, well, good, because I don't want to either. And then it gets to the point where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to have sex. I'm not trying to do anything. And you eventually, the look on your face right now, you eventually have to roll over and you're just like.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And to me, it's very, and you're like, I don't feel pressure. You're just kind of like, oh gosh, I can't handle this. I'm rolling over. Good night. Not in I don't feel rejected. I actually feel honored, because I've made it clear, no, I just want to read my book and go to sleep. And to me, that is a sign that you're doing good recovery work. So it's sometimes, so I guess bottom line, I'm like, what am I trying to say here? I think sometimes, I see that you have to kind of catch yourself and pivot.
Yeah.
Versus if I'm expecting no, you should just never get turned on.
Those wires should never cross.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not realistic.
Right.
And,
so again, there's a lot of gray here.
And there's also a part of that where what you're describing, most of the time, if I come over and cuddle with you, I'm not approaching that with sexual intention. That's not what my heart is.
No.
Sometimes it is. And I make that known when it is.
Yeah.
But it's not. And And then there's this like space where I'm determining sometimes, like, can I feel some of those feelings and just be connected with you physically, not sexually, but still feel some of those feelings. And sometimes I'm going, if I continue to be in this position doing this with you, I'm going to continue to make this sexual, and I don't want that. I don't want you to feel pressure. I don't want to feel the old weird feelings around that. So, good night.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's very much there's gray, and the wires sometimes do get, I don't want to say the wires get crossed, because they're not actually crossed.
No, I wouldn't say that either. I think I'm just trying to communicate that it's not like this perfect little, recovery isn't
Right.
I don't even have the words for it. I don't even know what
I know what you're saying. I think
Did you?
listeners would know what you're saying.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I hope so. Okay, so that's top down.
Yep, top down. Everything's informed by sex.
Right, and most, if not all men, come onto the scene with that top-down approach.
Yeah.
And women as well. Like, we can do that too. I before have wanted to engage sexually with you to connect.
Right.
And not do it not the harder way, but the better way.
Yeah, the better way.
Okay, so that's the first one. Second one, bottom up with strings attached. Share that one.
That is, I'm doing these things in order to get to the top.
Yes.
Right. I'm listening to you share. I'm tenderly and empathetically listening to you share about your ailing parent. And I'm expecting that this turns into something this evening.
Right.
Right. I'm rubbing your feet because your feet hurt, and because I think this is going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Like there's a string attached to the top of the cake, so to speak.
Right. Like, hey, you want to go on a bike ride? Knowing like this is how I'm going to get to.
Right. And it's usually not the motion you made there with your hands was kind of nefarious. It's like,
yes,
it's not
I feel like it is.
It's not, but I think it's informed oftentimes by stupid cultural stuff. It's women are crock pots and men are microwaves. There's that voice again. And it's like, there's cultural stuff plays in there too. Like you gotta hear her heart before she's gonna want to feel your body, and this kind of stuff. And it's like, really? No, okay. I'm gonna get off that soapbox again.
Yeah.
So strings attached, though, I think oftentimes is not nefarious. It is, however, misguided. It's oftentimes like, hey, I actually was connected with you when you were talking about your mom, and we did have a fun bike ride, and now I want to do it. What's wrong with that? And it's like, well, there might not be anything wrong with that. But there might be something wrong with that if while you were listening to her talk about her mom and having a bike ride, your mind was going to sex.
Yeah.
Like maybe there is something wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So
top down, strings attached.
Top down is the first one. Bottom up with strings attached.
Yeah.
What about no building blocks?
Yeah, that's a hard one to conceptualize for me, because it's like, we can accidentally be intimate in some ways, but it's almost like, there's no real connection.
Just full on intimacy aversion.
We're roommates, we're co-parents, and even in that, there's not a lot of intimacy, right? There's a lot of unilateral decision making. Oftentimes, yeah. And I see that show up most of the time, anecdotally. I see that show up as the dynamic in recovery, at the beginning of recovery, when their early relationship was basically predicated on sex. Like they didn't early on connect spiritually or emotionally or intellectually, or they didn't really have a lot of fun together. Their fun was sex. Like then we land at a place where it's almost like intimacy building blocks are absent. We don't even know what are we even at this point.
Yeah. I also think, this applies, the no building blocks. There are some women listening where he has acted out, whether it's with other women, pornography, fantasy, lust, whatever the case might be. And yet he's really not interested in being sexually intimate with her at all. So I think this also covers the no building blocks, captures those men.
Agreed.
And that can be very confusing for women. I feel like maybe we have an episode on this. I will try to find it and link it in the show notes. So ladies, look there. I'm like 99% sure we've talked about this. And so, but it's a very confusing, very painful for women when he is.
He was sexual over there, but not interested in me.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you sum that up? What's at the root of that?
I mean, I think there are various things at the root of that. I can't say there's one thing. I think oftentimes though that is the heart of intimacy aversion.
Yes.
It's like you're the scariest person on the planet because we said this before, you can confirm or deny how I already feel about myself.
Yeah. The
Right.
person closest to you has the most weight on.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I don't feel good about me and you're not interested and you reject me, that's like stamp final on who I am, on my shame, on my unlovability.
Yeah.
So I think oftentimes that repulsion or revulsion to being sexually intimate with spouse is born out of that core shame and intimacy aversion.
Yeah. So severe intimacy aversion.
It's not because of the wife.
Oh, no.
It's not.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. Okay. 4th of the 5, disintegrated. This is the final one. The 5th is how we want to do this.
Right.
But
when I think disintegrated, what I think is there's this dynamic where we have different, pick a building blocks, we have that, and then when it's done, it's gone. It's like there's no resilience, there's no staying power to it. It's like we're on a bike ride and we had fun, and now that the bikes are put away and we've gone on about our day, it's like there's no connection. That what we had is gone. And we have a moment that's tender, talking about your dad, and then when that moment's over, I'm out the door and it's like we never had a moment. And it's like this disintegrated, it's not integrative whole, it's not an integrative whole, it's like piecemeal. And it doesn't stick. And the same is true for intimacy, sexual intimacy.
Okay.
When I think about that, there's a piece there. Sorry, I went somewhere else in my head for a second. My ADD's kicking in. There's a piece of that where we talked about this a little bit on a previous episode. For some men, it's like we're sexually intimate. Well, the intimacy wears off after we're done because it's disintegrated, which means the things that it gave me wears off. So the love and affirmation and comfort and nurture and validation that I was seeking, the sense of peace and relief that I was seeking also wears off, which means now I need it again. That's disintegrated intimacy is part of what drives somebody being pressuring for repetitive sex, pressuring for repetitive things. And this can show up in recovery and look healthy, even though it's not. We need to talk more. Hey, Jason, our coach, said we gotta have more conversations, so we need to talk more. And she's going, I don't want to talk to you. I just need a break from you. And he's going, well, we got to talk. Or, hey, we need to hold hands. We can't get too far apart. We got to hold hands. And there's this pressure on the thing, and it's like this function of disintegrated intimacy. There's no staying power to it. If we're not holding hands, we're disconnected. If I haven't heard you say you're not leaving and you love me in the last week, then you're probably leaving and don't love me. And so it's I need the emotional intimacy, the reassurance, because there's no staying power. It's disintegrated. It doesn't stick.
And I feel and we might, I don't know, I'm going to make some notes because I would love to do an episode a little bit more on, so how do we go from this disintegrated intimacy to integrated? I guess that's the whole...
that's recovery.
Exactly. I'm listen to all the 100 episodes, and that's how you do it. I'm no, just give me the 6-step process.
Right.
But as I'm listening to you, I feel like this is in early recovery and in mid-recovery, this is what's happening. There is sorry, I saw this red beeping, and I was like, what's that? there's a lot of disintegrated. I mean, this is like what we experience with our clients
Yes.
in the early part of mid-recovery.
Yes.
You know, so I think a lot of our listeners will be like, I can relate to that. I can relate to that. It doesn't mean you haven't done any recovery work necessarily, but I feel like going from no intimacy to disintegrated intimacy to integrated intimacy is kind of the...
This goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning too, though, in the last episode, is there's a piece of this where I have to learn to use my words to communicate what I used to use my body for. Right? I've got to learn to articulate intimacy, emotional intimacy, rather than have to touch you to express it. I've got to learn to experience intimacy from you without you confirming that I'm understood. I'm thinking intellectual intimacy, right? Like there's part of that like next recovery phase is the integration, is learning some of those. That's how it gets integrated. I can tell you I love you and I don't have to touch you to prove it. You can say you care about me and you don't have to have sex with me to prove it. Kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I have to use my words for what I used to use my body for. You've said some great things.
Nice.
This is, okay, so the fifth dynamic is bottom up, no strings attached. We've alluded to this, but still go ahead and tell, I'm being the interviewer.
Yeah.
Tell our listeners. Unpack that.
Yeah, I mean,
and
so
that,
now
I think that brings us to the end.
Now we're experiencing intimacy, specific intimacies for the sake of intimacy. We're spiritually intimate for the sake of spiritual. We're intellectually intimate for the sake of intellectual intimacy, not to get us somewhere else. So it's not sexually charged, although the confluence of all of them might be, because it should be, I would submit, by design, right?
Wait. What do you mean? By design?
Yeah, that when we are, I would submit that by God's design, when we're spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, physically connected and with myself and with God and you, that would be sexually charged at that point. That would lead to sexual intimacy. Right? The capstone of those intimacies, as you said.
Yes.
Don't be knocking over the tea, buddy. So yeah, each of them stand alone unto themselves for the sake of themselves, and together create a connection, a holistic intimacy, and a connection that, and I think this is a kind of a telltale sign of good integrated holistic intimacy, is that they're satisfying. They're satisfying. Like, if I have those, I don't need sexual intimacy. I want sexual intimacy, but I don't need sexual intimacy. Right? I don't need to use my sexuality to confirm or final stamp something. There's actually a satisfaction in them together, holistically, in themselves. Does that make sense? So this is a tell in recovery working with people, is like you're somewhere in your recovery process and y'all are going out of town, and I'll say to a couple like, hey, what are the conversations about? What are the expectations around sexual intimacy? I mean, y'all are going to be alone in a hotel room. You know, it's the first time in several months, blah, blah, blah. And when I hear a husband authentically say, oh, there's no expectation with that. We're just going to enjoy being together. It's like, okay, that right there. And you can see it. You can see the posture. You can hear the texture, right? That's different than like, no expectations for sex. I mean, we're definitely not touching. It's fastinance right now. Not that. That's not what I'm talking about. You can hear him express, I'm content just being with her. Right? That's like real integrative, holistic intimacy starting to form.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that.
The end.
Yeah. I felt like I had some things to say about that, but I think I'm out of words. So, okay. So, guys, we will put a link to the podcast freebies. I think this is probably a good time to share because we're in the 8th season. There's a lot of podcast freebies, and we keep adding to essentially that email. So let's say that in season 2, you got the email for the podcast freebies and you want to get it again because there's so much more in there. You have to let us know. Just going to the link and putting your email address in again will not send it to you. So you have to send us an email, hello@rl4women.com. I'll put this in the show notes as well. When I hear this, I'll remember to do it. You've got to just send us a regular email and say, hey, I need the updated podcast freebie email. We have to remove you from the segment, then add you back in.
Oh, that's way too much detail.
I know, but I just want people to know that we have to do something internally to make that happen. So thank you so much for joining us. We are looking forward to this season with you and to all the things that we discuss. Please reach out if you have any questions or any thoughts or suggestions on a podcast episode. Yep. We are definitely looking at those as we continue to work on season 8.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.